This just might bring you to tears. Either that or I have paprika in my eyeball. Ow. Hello and welcome to the Spice Show. Today we will be cooking with a lot of spices, but we have two guests of honor that I would like to spotlight. The first guest is Paprika, which is our spice highlight today. And the second guest is Ethan from Burlap Barrel. He's one of the co-founders of the spice company that sources single origin spices and pays their farmers pretty equitably. Not sponsored content, we just like to see a good business every now and then. On previous episodes of The Spice Show, you've seen me delve into cinnamon and turmeric, but I am not really a spice expert. And you know what they say, work smarter, not harder. So I went and found someone who is way more expert in this field than I am. Hi Ethan, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm so excited to learn about paprika.
Hey June, I'm excited to be here talking about paprika, a very exciting subject.
So what is paprika?
Paprika is a huge category of spices, really any pepper powder, red pepper powder, sometimes sweet, sometimes spicy, sometimes the peppers are smoked, but it's any pepper that's been dried and turned into a powder.
So what contributes to some being spicy and some being sweet and smoky?
It totally depends on the pepper that you're starting out with to make the paprika. Different peppers have different levels of heat. You know, anything from some of the super spicy like Carolina Reapers or anything like that, you could make a paprika out of those.
Paprika, just basically a word that covers all kinds of ground dried chilies?
Ground dried capsicum peppers, right? Sweet or spicy, yeah.
What is the difference between, like, I noticed some paprikas are a little bit orangier, some are redder. What contributes to that color difference?
Yeah, again, there's a lot of variables. One thing could be the color of the pepper that you're starting out with. Almost all peppers start off green and then turn red as they ripen. For a more orangey paprika, it might be picked kind of halfway through that ripening process, not fully red. It could also have to do with what goes into the paprika powder. You could just do the red pulp, or you can add in the fiber, the membranes inside, and the seeds, and even the stem in some cases are ground up into the paprika, so those will all lighten the color.
What are the different kind of geographical characteristics? Because I know that Burlap Barrel goes all over the world for their spices. Have you noticed different tastes coming out of different regions that grow peppers?
Yeah, it's a great question. A ton of difference between peppers growing in different places. Peppers are a very adaptive crop, so they really respond to the environment. The pepper plant is native to the Americas. It's native most likely to a stretch of land between like southern Mexico and northern South America. Depending on where it's grown, depending on the variety, depending on qualities of the soil and whatever the farmer is doing, paprikas will definitely taste different.
And what contributes to different price points when it comes to spices like paprika?
In general, you get what you pay for with spices. There are a lot of quality grades, and you could be buying something that was grown on a huge farm, not a whole lot of attention, probably with a lot of pesticides and herbicides. The whole pepper is dried and ground, so that's the stem and the seeds and everything else inside. That will get you a less good flavor. It will be cheaper and it will not taste as good. You'll get a lot more of that kind of bitterness and other vegetable notes. At the kind of higher end, you'll get something that was grown by a farmer who knows what they're doing, who's paying a lot of attention, often grown organically, and who's picking the peppers when they're ripe, removing the seeds in the stalk, and that will get you a darker color as well as a stronger flavor, but also a more kind of unique or distinctive flavor depending on where it comes from.
Do you know if it's possible to make paprika at home?
Sure, definitely possible. You could go out and buy some fresh peppers and then dry them either in a little dehydrator, or you could put them in your oven at a very low temperature and crack the door. If you do want to do it, I would suggest getting a whole bunch of peppers because they're going to lose a lot of water weight.
Okay.
Cleaning them, so removing the seeds and the stalks and everything else, cutting them into strips or kind of planks.
Right.
Laying them out on a sheet pan and putting them in your oven as low and slow as possible and
Right.
check them.
So is there a difference then between paprika and chili powder?
The only real difference is the level of heat, is how spicy it would be, where chili pepper, people assume it will be spicy, and paprika, people generally assume it won't be spicy, but it can really do whatever you want.
All these peppers are from the same species.
There are 3 species of pepper, but most pepper that you buy are from the same species.
That's fascinating that the same species of peppers can taste so drastically different.
It's like wine grapes, same species of grape, looks and tastes very different.
Never knew about this before. I have a coworker who hates paprika. She calls it the red flower because she thinks it tastes like dirt. So we're gonna try to explore a little bit on how to use this spice and give it the credit and the respect it deserves. How often would you recommend that people run through the paprika so that it's not sitting there for years?
Well, spices don't get better with age, so use them. If you're going through a jar in a year, that's totally fine. If it's 2 years, you will start to lose some color and aroma, but it won't go bad.
How would you personally describe the flavor of paprika?
Good paprika should smell like a dried fruit when you open the jar. It should smell sweet. It should smell a little musky, but in a good umami, savory kind of a way. And it should have a strong smell. You should open the jar and you should be able to smell it long before you actually stick your nose into the jar. But also there's a touch of vegetal bitterness that I really love, right? Adds layers of flavor and complexity to a dish.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to chat, and I'm excited for you to see this episode.
Thanks for having me on.
I'll see you later.
All right, bye.
Bye. We're gonna experiment, we're gonna cook, we're gonna taste, and we're gonna see how paprika performs across all kinds of meals. Possibilities, they are always endless. Spoiler alert, you can use paprika anywhere because it's a spice, and just like any spice, it's totally dependent on your application and your tastes. It's apparently so commonplace in Hungary that it's placed on every single table like the way we have black pepper and salt here in the United States. All that talking about spices and food has got me hungry for some breakfast. For breakfast, you can sear up a couple of sunny-side up eggs, you can sprinkle some paprika and salt on top, and there you have it. Eggs, paprika, seasoning, life. My personal favorite is to use smoked paprika on eggs, but any variety of this red delicious powder will do. If you always use black pepper on everything, why not paprika? In addition to providing some nice smoky, slightly sweet flavors, you also have a pop of red to really liven up that plate. It's also great if you want to have a sweet breakfast toast, maybe with a little bit of muffin and ricotta or tahini and honey, and then you sprinkle on some crunchy sea salt and paprika. Just try it. Just try it. Ethan's right. Especially with tahini, that paprika almost has a cocoa-y taste. So next time you're yearning for some chocolate and peanut butter combo, what about paprika and tahini? You can even put it on fruit. Plums, amazing. If your plum is a little bit tart and astringent, putting a little bit of paprika on will make that flavor even sweeter. Right now it's summer here, but you know what? Hot cocoa is good all year round. I was thinking, why not spice up our hot cocoa beyond just the sugar, chocolate, sugar? In Mayan traditions, chocolate drinks were often brewed with chili peppers and other spicious ingredients, so why not add that spunk back into our version today? We're gonna feature all 3 popular spices that were found in the New World. We got some chili peppers, we got some vanilla, and we have some allspice. And yes, these are very old allspice, I'm sorry. As Ethan said, spices don't really go bad, they just lose flavor and punch. To make the hot cocoa, we're gonna take a small pot, we're gonna add some cocoa powder, granulated sugar, cornstarch, sweet paprika, smoked paprika, allspice berries, and a little touch of salt. We're gonna give those a little mix until they're nice and combined, and then we're gonna set it over a medium-low heat and stream in our milk. Just make sure you continue to whisk while your milk is streaming in, that way you don't end up with any clumps. Whenever you're cooking milk, you want to make sure you're stirring constantly to avoid burning on the bottom of the pot. We're gonna cook it until it's nice and thick, a little bit steamy, and a little bit luscious. Once it starts looking extremely silky, take it off the heat and pour in your vanilla, give it a good stir, and serve. This is like drinking liquefied brownie batter. And that is a very good thing indeed. It's thick, it's rich, it's everything I want my hot cocoa to be. Plus, it's nicely seasoned. Now that we're sufficiently amped up on sugar and cocoa, let's talk lunch. I'm thinking vegetarian pumpkin chili. Chili usually has ground beef in it, but today I'm gonna substitute in some cauliflower. We're gonna rice that cauliflower up by chopping it real fine. We're going to toss it with some oil and spices, spread it on a sheet tray, and we're gonna bake it. Oven's at 375. We're gonna let it roast until it's nice and golden. Every 15 to 20 minutes or so, I like to take the tray out, inspect it, give it a nice good toss to make sure nothing's burning, put it back in until it's that perfectly golden stage. While our cauliflower is roasting, we're gonna go ahead and set a large pot over medium heat. We're going to drop in some oil, and then we're gonna toast some spices. We're gonna go in with paprikas, cumin seed, garlic, and we're gonna stir it until it's nice and fragrant. Once the spices are toasty, we're then gonna add in some cut poblanos, as well as onions and gochugaru. If you like your chilies herbalicious, go in with a little bit of fresh or dried oregano as well. As always, season with salt as you're cooking so that the flavor is imbibed into every single layer. Once the onions are soft, we're gonna go in with our pumpkin. Now, I just want to say that in terms of pumpkin, I'm actually using a squash. This is a kabocha squash. It is my favorite squash, and I even make my Thanksgiving pumpkin pies with this. So if you haven't tried this one yet, give this baby a try. We're gonna go in with some canned tomatoes. I'm going in with crushed and diced, and we're gonna add some beans of your choice, 2 cans worth. We're gonna add in some water or broth, your choice, and we're gonna bring it up to a simmer. We're going to stir occasionally and let this cook with a cover lidded until that pumpkin is nice and tender. I want it to be fork tender, I want it to be creamy, and I want it to be melting in your mouth. At this point, we're gonna fold in our roasted golden cauliflower bits, and we're just gonna let it sit for 10 minutes and get all happy together. While your chili is bubbling away, if you have any leftover grains like brown rice, go ahead and make some paprika fried rice. If you really want to amp up that chili goodness, go ahead and add another type in. You can serve with some sour cream, you can serve with some shredded cheese, you can serve with some herbs, all up to you. I love using paprika, especially smoked paprika, for vegetarian dishes because it really brings to the table that kind of cured sausage meat taste. So if you like that smoky umami-ness, this is the guy for you. The smokiness of the paprika together with the poblano, oh yeah. The acidity of the tomatoes set against the creaminess of the beans and the sour cream and the pumpkin. You get the nice fruitiness of the tomatoes and the pumpkins. I think it's the paprika, the sweet paprika, that brings that out. And then you get the nice smokiness that underlies every single bite. Comfort food at its best. Once you get down to the bottom, you get some of that nice fiery paprika fried rice, soaking up all of that good chili juice. I'd say I'm satisfied. Because paprika is so good at giving vegetarian dishes that kind of meaty umami bump, I love to put it on eggplants. Specifically, cheesy baked eggplants. What I like to do is wash my eggplants, dry them, and then I slice them into about 1/4 inch thick planks. I then put them on a cooling rack, fit it into a baking sheet, and then I layer them together with a little bit of salt on both sides. Let them rest for 30 minutes, the moisture will get drawn out as well as the astringency, and then we pat it dry with paper towels. We're going to preheat our oven to 375, and then in a small bowl we're going to mix together paprikas, Italian seasoning, and some black pepper. We're going to sprinkle this spice mixture all over the eggplants on both sides, and then we're going to brush them with oil to evenly spread that spice all over. We're going to place these eggplants in a single layer on baking sheets, and then we're going to let them bake for about 10 to 15 minutes until the bottom is a little bit golden. We're going to flip all of them, top them evenly with mozzarella cheese, slide them back in until that cheese is nice and cheesy. Cheesy, melty, golden, delicious. To serve, you can sprinkle with more paprika if you want, you can go on with some fresh herbs, or you can just roll it up, eat it, enjoy it. Be happy. For the eggplants, you can also top them with Parmesan cheese. You can also blast your oven to 400 if you like your edges especially crispy. There's just a lot of room for play here. For me, this is one of those perfect in-between snack meal type things where if you eat enough of it, it counts as a meal. But if you just eat one or two, it's a good snack. The eggplant is fall apart tender, the cheese is nicely caramelized, everything's rich and spicy and satisfying. If you like cheese, if you like eggplants, this just might bring you to tears. Either that or I have paprika in my eyeball. Ow. I'm gonna go take care of my eyeball, but up next, dessert. All right, I'm back. My eyeball is better than ever. And for dessert, we're gonna have some paprika shortbreads. For our shortbreads, I'm gonna use butter, powdered sugar, and some ground oats instead of all-purpose flour. I'm also going to flavor it with a little bit of paprika, of course, as well as ground ginger and some ground pecans. For me, when I am baking with pecans, I always like to use toasted pecans. The nuttiness and the natural sweetness that comes out through that toasting process, unbeatable. I think the pecans are gonna pair really well with the sweet paprika, and we're gonna add some of that ground ginger in for a little bit of spiciness. If you don't have oat flour at home, it's totally okay. Buy whatever kind of oatmeal you want, put it in your high-speed blender, and just let it blitz until it's completely powdered. To make the shortbread a more cohesive cookie, we're going to pulse our pecans in our food processor until they're nice and small. To make these cookies, we're gonna throw our butter, our powdered sugar, a little bit of salt, some paprika, and some ground ginger. Cream them until they're nice and fluffy. We're gonna fold in our oat flour as well as our ground pecans, and we're just gonna go until it's nice and combined. We're going to sandwich this between two pieces of parchment paper, form it into a square or a rectangle. If you have a bench scraper, you can go ahead and use that to help you shape that square or rectangle. This will just make your cookies neater later on without any need to re-roll scraps. Because the dough is so soft at this point, you don't even need to use the rolling pin in a rolling manner. Just use it to glide and smooth out any thick or thinner parts. And just slide it into our fridge or freezer until it's solidified. After you've patiently waited for it to harden, go ahead and preheat your oven to 325, take out your dough, peel off both sides of the parchment to release it fully, and then trim it into your desired shapes. You can do a little pokey hole if you want that on your shortbread, but whatever you do, don't skip the paprika sugar that goes on top. You're just going to toss together some more paprika and some sugar until it's nice and mixed. Tastes vaguely like a green bell pepper had a baby with cotton candy. And then you're gonna sprinkle that very lightly all across your shortbread. Give it a nice little pat so that you can secure that sugar on top and slide it into your preheated oven. We're gonna bake them until the edges just start to blush a little bit of goldenness. And then we're gonna be very patient and wait for it to cool off completely before we touch it. So I pulled the number one big no-no when it comes to baking cookies, which is not spacing apart my cookies enough. But do as I say, not as I do. Space your cookies at least an inch apart. If you do make this mistake, no big. Take a sharp knife, cut them while they're still warm, and they should be able to cool off separately. Otherwise, just let them cool completely and break them along the lines. It is so light and rich at the same time, perfectly crumbly. The crunchy bits of pecans and the sugar on top. And you know what? If you still have some of that luscious cocoa left over, I do believe you owe it to yourself to do a dip. That's gorgeous. Girl. Okay, it's a very fragile cookie, but man, you guys. Cookie cereal. What we all dreamed we would eat as adults. Fragile, just like my heart. Can you taste the paprika? Not really. Instead of being a pronounced flavor all on its own, the paprika and the ginger kind of combine powers to give that pecan flavor an even deeper nuttiness. If I were to borrow some words from the Psalm world, I would say that this cookie has a slight tannic fruitiness to it. Don't think too hard about it. Words are only there to give you a fantasy. For dinner, I'm thinking sweet potato gnocchi. For the sweet potato gnocchi, you're gonna need cooked sweet potatoes. I'm using about 2 medium to large sweet potatoes, about a pound-ish total. You can roast them at 400 to 425 degrees for about an hour or so until they're nice and tender, or you can wash them, dry them, poke them all over, and then stick them in the microwave. It takes usually for skinny boys like this about 5 to 8 minutes to get completely creamy on the inside. Put them in a bowl, cover them with a lid, and just let them sit for 5 minutes, 1 to cool down and 2 for the skin to kind of release itself from the flesh. After that, we're gonna peel them, we're going to mash them, or if you have a ricer, use the ricer. It'll make your gnocchi a lot fluffier. While the potatoes are still warm, we're gonna hit it with some seasonings. A little bit of ricotta, a little bit of maple syrup, along with kosher salt, sweet paprika, freshly ground black pepper, and a pinch of grated nutmeg. Once that mixture is a little bit cooler, we're gonna whisk in an egg and we're gonna start folding in our flours. We're using a little bit of whole wheat flour here to give a nuttiness, and we're gonna add in all-purpose flour until that dough is nice and soft and cohesive. Because potato sizes may vary, you're gonna have to gauge the flour by eye and by feel. After going in with my whole wheat flour and about a cup of my all-purpose flour, I wanna see how wet the dough is. If the dough is sticking to your fingers and coming off in a slight fudginess, you gotta keep adding flour. I like to go about 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup at a time so that you don't end up overworking and densifying that dough. Once you have a soft, pliable dough that doesn't really stick to your hands anymore, go ahead, cover it, and slide it into your fridge for at least 30 minutes up to overnight. Letting your dough chill will let it hydrate a little bit better and give you a much smoother texture. After 30 minutes, we'll pull it out, we'll divide the dough into 4 pieces and roll each one into a rope. And then we'll cut up some pieces of gnocchi. If you've ever shaped sourdough boules, it's not unlike that process. You're basically just tightening the gluten slightly and giving it more shape without really doing too much to it. And if you want, press the back of a fork to create those tine patterns. Or if you're not a fan of patterns, skip it. A gnocchi's a gnocchi. In a pot of boiling salted water, we're gonna cook these until they float about 1.5 to 2 minutes. We're gonna fish them out and make sure all of the water is drained from each gnocchi, and then we're gonna move on to our sauce. In a skillet over medium heat, we're gonna render some cut up bacon. We're gonna go until the pieces are nice and crispy and golden and that fat is all rendered. Transfer the bacon pieces off to a plate and keep that fat in the skillet. That is flavor, baby, and we're about to fry up some parsley leaves in there. Just make sure that your parsley leaves are really dry or they will hurt you. We're gonna plop in some butter, wait for that to melt, and then we're going to go in with our cooked gnocchi. We're gonna let those crisp up until they're nice and golden and crispy. Transfer the gnocchi to a plate, and then we're gonna add in some maple syrup, some bourbon, and some smoked paprika, whisking until all of that is nice and combined. Cooking over a medium-low heat, we're going to go until that sauce is a little bit thickened and reduced. Once it looks nice and smooth and syrupy, we're gonna add our gnocchi back in, give it a nice good toss, plate. We're gonna scatter our crispy bacon tops. We're gonna go ahead and grate a little bit of Parmesan on top, place our fried parsley right there, and a little more paprika if you want. Paprika in the gnocchi, paprika in the sauce, paprika everywhere. You can smell the butter, you can smell the bacon, you can smell the maple. The gnocchi is basically candied. Is this dessert or is this dinner? Hard to say. It is mighty tender though. Nice and soft and pillowy on the inside, and the outside a crisp little maple caramel crust. Get a bite with the bacon, get a bite with the parm, get a bite with the parsley, and obviously get a bite with some paprika. Salty, smoky, mapley, fatty, delicious. I hope y'all enjoyed watching me play around with paprika today, and if there's any recipes that you love using paprika in that you didn't hear me mention, drop a comment down below and let us know. How do you like to use this? Also drop a comment down below and let us know what other spices you want us to explore, and maybe Ethan will grace us with his education and knowledge once more. And don't forget, as the Spice Girls once famously said, spice up your life. Wonder which Spice Girl liked paprika.